Do you expect any kind of ruling by the NFL on the hit by Roby Coleman?
Dan, the league was going to publicly admit that they had made a mistake, and that was the plan as of Sunday night. And then by late Sunday night, there was haggling over the language. There was consideration given to a statement that would mention both the non-call on Roby Coleman and the failure to flag the face mask on Jared Goff earlier in the quarter to kind of balance it out. I guess two wrongs make a right. Then the NFL abandoned that approach altogether. On Monday, they began leaking to select reporters the changes that may be made, of course, before they started to undermine the changes that could be made. But for now, the league is just silent. And I think it all comes down to two things. Will they fine Nickel Roby Coleman for the helmet-to-helmet hit on a defenseless receiver? If that fine is imposed, then that's an implicit acknowledgement that they did make a mistake, and maybe they won't fine him for that purpose alone. And then the question becomes next week when the commissioner is available prior to the Super Bowl. Will somebody ask him a clear and pointed question, not a grandstanding two-part question with a long preamble that allows him to be evasive, but a very specific question? Will you admit that an error was made last week in the NFC Championship game? Otherwise, I think they're just going to avoid it, possibly indefinitely.
Yeah, I don't know how you avoid it because it was helmet to helmet. And if you're going to find somebody, it's almost one of those situations where next season, if somebody is guilty of a helmet-to-helmet, they might use that as evidence to say, well, but you didn't call helmet-to-helmet on this. What is the difference in my call? I know what you're saying. The last thing the NFL wants to do is have this continue and follow it into Atlanta, but it feels like there needs to be a ruling on that hit, and I think it was helmet-to-helmet.
Yeah, and I think the issue is, Dan, that it delegitimizes the Rams' berth in the Super Bowl, and that's what they're trying to avoid, even though privately they've apologized to the Saints. Privately, they've wallowed in the failure to make that call, and from every angle you see, it's clear that it was just a blown call. But, the Rams are getting a little salty about what's being taken away from what they've accomplished, and I understand the arguments that there are many points and decisions and factors in a game that result in the outcome, but there aren't many situations where it's more clear-cut and there's more of a bright line between a bad call and a blown opportunity for a team to get to a Super Bowl, and that's not going to change. And maybe the NFL realizes, you know what, we don't need to admit it because everybody knows. Why say anything? Who doesn't at this point realize it was a bad call?
That's an interesting approach there. It's like I was told yesterday, because I said, where is Commissioner Goodell? And I was told if he comes out and says something, he'll be criticized. If he doesn't come out, he'll be criticized. And I said, his job is not to be concerned about how he's going to be criticized or when or if. He is the commissioner of the league. What happened in New Orleans, I would like to know as a football fan, not a Saints fan. I just want to know as a football fan, what happened? How did it happen? And are we talking about any ways to ensure that something like that never happens again? So why is the commissioner quiet?
Well, and I think it's an extension of the siege mentality that has descended on 345 Park Avenue whenever they have a crisis now. It started with Ray Rice, and it's continued ever since then. The idea that instead of standing up, admitting a mistake, or taking on a situation like that, they hunker down. They hide under the bed. They say as little as possible because they know that nothing they say is going to make it any better. And I think it's also part of the notion that the PR function is so dominated by political operatives that it's not about saying what's true or standing up and taking the flak. There's a broader game that's being played. And yeah, I think he does need to say something. Our buddy Tom Curran has characterized Roger Goodell as the world's highest paid pincushion on many occasions because he's out there to take the heat while the owners hide behind a curtain. But now Goodell's right back there hiding behind the curtain with them.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.